Tienen que estar con el pecho, ¿sí, verdad? El papel solamente no. Deja de estar grabando, culero.
No, he scooted over.
Hey guys, wow. It's 4:17 a.m. in Vinton, Louisiana. You can hear frogs still croaking near the swamps behind the Delta Downs racetrack, the world dim with early mist. Somewhere in the silence, a stable bull boy starts his shift unaware that 18 black Suburbans are already parked down the highway. Then come the boots, the radios, the shouts in English, "Ice! Hands up!" You watch it happen, not from the comfort of your couch, but standing beside a man with calloused hands and tired eyes. His name is Jorge, and he's just been tackled face first into the dirt by a federal agent with a laminated badge. This wasn't supposed to happen. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your city and what time it is where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story reaches. And let's go on the journey of today's story together. You wouldn't expect a racetrack to be ground zero for federal immigration enforcement. It's a place of wagers and winners, garish colors and crushed dreams. But this time, the dream is shattered not by a losing ticket, but by the thud of ice boots kicking open trailer doors. They call it targeted enforcement. What it feels like is a war zone. These were not criminals. They were grooms, hot walkers, feed haulers, many of whom hadn't missed a day's work in years. A source from The Guardian reported ICE coordinated with local police and quietly surveilled the site for weeks before launching their sweep. Detainees were processed at a nearby holding center before being shipped literally on a repurposed prison bus. Odd fact? According to a bizarre update buried in the ICE newsroom, this same team was previously deployed to arrest 2 undocumented falconers near the Arizona border. Birds of prey and all. A Reuters social feed post calls the operation surgical and efficient. But you can't help wondering, what kind of country turns a barn into a battlefield? You walk across the grounds the next morning, the sun now fully exposing what's been hiding in plain sight. Delta Downs racetrack is quiet. Eerily so, no horses, no clatter of buckets, no laughter in Spanish echoing from the bunkhouses behind the stables. Just broken routines and empty stalls. From a distance, the racetrack looks like a proud monument to Louisiana's horse racing tradition. But you're standing inside its gut, and what you see isn't glamour, it's labor. Silent, brown-skinned, undocumented labor. What most fans don't know what you didn't know is that racetracks like Delta Downs depend almost entirely on immigrant workers. They start at 4 a.m., hauling hay and cleaning hooves before most Americans hit the snooze button. These workers don't appear in promotional videos or on winners' podiums. They sleep in dorm-style trailers and send most of their paychecks back to Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras. According to a 2024 investigation by ProPublica, 85% of U.S. racetrack backstretch workers are immigrants, and a majority are undocumented. The system is rigged for silence. Racetrack owners use contractors and subcontractors to maintain legal distance, a loophole that lets them hire undocumented workers while technically staying within the law. No fingerprints, no benefits, no voice. That day, ICE exploited that silence. They called it routine enforcement in an official statement at ice.gov. But for you, nothing about it feels routine. One woman, age 52, was dragged from the laundry room where she folded towels for jockeys. Another, just 18, was cuffed near the feed bins, her phone still lived on a WhatsApp call to her mother. She didn't even get to hang up. And the strangest thing? In the middle of ICE's official photo gallery, one image features a smiling officer proudly holding up a confiscated cowboy hat. Like it's a trophy. You blink, you look again, it's still there. Meanwhile, local media NOLA.com ran a short blurb. Federal agents detain undocumented workers in Vinton. That's it, as if the story stopped there, as if lives hadn't just been erased with a pen and a bus ticket. You see him just past stall number 6. Jorge. He always wears the same red cap, always carries that faded grooming brush in his back pocket. You met him once, briefly, during a visit arranged by a local nonprofit that tries to support undocumented laborers. He smiled with his eyes and spoke softly. Guatemalan by birth, father of 3. His youngest, Valeria, had never met him outside of video calls. He hadn't missed a single day's work in over 3 years. Never asked for trouble, never expected to be tackled like a criminal in the dirt he'd spent years raking smooth for racehorses. You watch it replay in your mind. He was walking back from the hay barn, cup of coffee in one hand, when a flashbang lit up the sky. Yes, Ice used a flashbang. In a racetrack stable. Jorge dropped his coffee, didn't even run. He raised his hands. Still, they pinned him to the ground like a fugitive. He shouted one word, Valeria. Maybe he thought she was there. Maybe he thought he was dreaming. He wasn't. One of the other workers, a 19-year-old kid named Mateo, recorded part of it before his phone was snatched. The footage is grainy, but you can hear Jorge crying. Not out of fear, out of something older, something deeper. The sound of trust collapsing. Jorge's only offense? Overstaying a visa in 2017. He applied for asylum and was still waiting on a court date like 1.5 million others currently stuck in ICE's backlog system, according to Track Immigration. No violence, no drugs, no gangs, just hooves, hay, and handcuffs. Later, ICE issued a public statement claiming all operations adhere to internal ethical procedures. Ethical. That word echoes in your head like a cruel joke. What they didn't mention in the release? Jorge's wife had just mailed in a stack of documents for his work permit renewal. What they didn't mention? Jorge is diabetic. What they didn't mention? The horses in his care refused to eat the next day. Social media flared. The New York Post ran a clicky headline, ICE snags illegal racetrack workers in dawn op. No names, no faces, no brush, no red cap. You sit down with the numbers because sometimes numbers refuse to lie, and what you see makes your stomach twist. According to ICE's official post-raid statement on ice.gov, 63 people were detained at Delta Downs. Of those, only 6 had prior immigration violations, and just 1 had any criminal record, a misdemeanor from 2012 involving a broken taillight and failure to appear. The rest, no prior offenses, no violent history, nothing. Just men and women with brooms, buckets, and payroll slips stamped with subcontractor logos. Track Immigration later released a data review showing that 90% of those arrested at the track had pending asylum cases. Many submitted under duress after years of contributing to their community. At least 17 had filed taxes using ITINs, individual taxpayer identification numbers. None were fugitives. No one was armed. What did ICE find? Shovels, blankets, pictures of kids taped to bunk walls, a soccer ball. And here's where it gets strange. Buried in ICE's press brief is a line about successful biometric verification of threat profiles. But an investigative tweet by the Marshall Project called that pure algorithmic theater. ICE had deployed a predictive profiling tool during the raid, something dubbed Sentinel, which tries to forecast future risk based on undocumented digital footprints. Jorge pinged as a level 2 concern because he once shared a Facebook meme critical of U.S. border policy. Yes, a meme. That meme, by the way, featured a cartoon cactus holding a no-wall sign. A deeper dive by Wired revealed that Sentinel had a 62% false positive rate when tested in pilot cities. Still, ICE used it to greenlight detentions at Delta Downs. No warrant necessary, just data. Cold, buggy data. And the horses? Over 30 were left unattended for nearly 12 hours post-raid. A local vet was finally called in by a neighboring trainer, not by the racetrack management. The vet later testified to the advocate that 3 horses were visibly distressed and 1 required emergency hydration after being found thrashing in its stall. But the ICE summary ends with 2 words, mission accomplished. You try to keep your mind neutral, try to see both sides. After all, the law is the law, right? That's what the talking heads on morning radio keep saying. If they didn't want to be deported, they shouldn't have broken the law. It sounds so simple, so surgically clean, but you've just seen Jorge dragged away like contraband, and you can't unhear the sound of his horse whinnying after him. So now you ask yourself, was this justice or was this theater? ICE frames it as public safety. On ice.gov, Director Tom Modlin said the raid was a model of procedural excellence aimed at restoring law and order to vulnerable employment sectors. You know what that really means? It means optics. It means a press release with numbers that sound like action and photos that look like victory. The horses made no headlines. Jorge made no headlines. But ICE? They made themselves look busy, and yet the moral tension doesn't just vanish because you want it to. You talk to a racetrack security guard who supports the raid. They're not supposed to be here, he says, and I've got family who waited years to come legally. He's not angry, just tired. Tired of being told he's part of the problem for thinking rules should matter. That's when it hits you. This isn't about law. It's about which laws matter to whom. ICE acted within legal boundaries. But legal isn't the same as ethical. Legal isn't the same as just. Rosa Parks broke a law. So did Harriet Tubman. So did the students of the Greensboro sit-ins. Illegal doesn't mean immoral. It means inconvenient to the people in power. In a courtroom, this debate might sound academic, but in a stall littered with hay and handcuffs, it's personal. Especially when you learn that several of the workers detained were brought in under false pretenses, hired by recruiters who never told them the job required legal documentation they didn't have. That's exploitation. Yet ICE didn't arrest the recruiters. They arrested the exploited. Meanwhile, a post from The Independent covering the raid's aftermath quoted one ICE officer saying, "We do what the system lets us do." You think, so did every monster in history. You hear it before you see it, the stillness in town, like someone hit mute on a place that used to hum. Main Street, Vinton, Louisiana, isn't grand, but it had rhythm. The corner taqueria is shuttered now. The laundromat? Empty. Even the church has fewer cars in the parking lot. It's not just that people are gone, it's that they're afraid to be seen. The raid at Delta Downs didn't just target 63 individuals, it detonated a community. The workers who weren't arrested have gone into hiding, terrified their names might be next on ICE's mystery list. Families are torn apart not by deportation alone, but by the sheer anticipation of it. Local schools saw an 18% attendance drop in the days after the raid, according to the Calcasieu Parish School Board. Some kids just vanished. The economic ripple is real too. Horses don't groom themselves. With their handlers gone, several trainers canceled races, and Delta Downs temporarily reduced its event schedule, bleeding ticket revenue and tourism. Even the state lottery saw a dip in weekly sales as racetrack foot traffic waned. One local business owner told Cal Matters, "It's like someone threw a switch and cut the oxygen." And what about the workers? Most were transferred to a detention facility 180 miles away, too far for family to visit. Legal aid? Almost non-existent. The ACLU noted that the closest immigration court has a backlog of 33,000 cases. Some hearing dates are 3 years out. Jorge's name is on that list. Somewhere. Then comes the cruel twist. ICE tweeted a photo from the raid, a wide shot of agents standing by a loading truck. In the background, you spot one of the horses Jorge groomed. His name is Lucky 8. Lucky 8 stands still, confused. It's a blink and you miss it frame, but it says everything. Meanwhile, community groups scramble. A GoFundMe circulates. A church launches a food drive for the children left behind. And a retired jockey sets up a free grooming clinic just to keep the animals from suffering too. But there's no system for repairing the trust that's broken, no database for the emotional damage, and no memo from ICE explaining what happens to a town when it becomes collateral damage. You find yourself alone in the stables again. No camera crew, no crowd, just hay dust in the air and the slow drip of a broken faucet. You run your hand along a wooden stall door, feel the deep scratches left behind by restless hooves. It's peaceful, but it's haunted, because once you see what's beneath the surface, you can't unsee it. This wasn't just about one racetrack. This was about who we are willing to disappear in the name of order. You remember Jorge's face, his confused look as he was dragged away. You remember the church volunteer telling you, they came here invisible. Now they're gone and we still don't see them. And you realize something painful. We've built a moral architecture that lets us walk past suffering as long as it's legally authorized. We worship law like it's God, even when it's weaponized against the defenseless. Delta Downs was never just a workplace. It was a system, a microcosm of American contradictions. We pride ourselves on being the land of opportunity, yet our industries run on those we refuse to recognize. It's not just hypocrisy, it's dependency masked as disdain. And the shame doesn't stop at ICE. It seeps into every subcontractor who shrugged and said, "Not my responsibility." into every racetrack executive who cashed the checks and kept silent, into the lawmakers who fund operations like this, then tweet about family values. Oddly enough, the New York Times once published a piece on racetrack labor where a horse owner was quoted saying, "They do everything. The horses trust them more than they trust us." The irony is sickening. Trust. A word thrown around like hay but abandoned when it's time to defend the ones who earn it. And here's where the truth hurts. No badge, no press release, no biometric algorithm can clean the blood from a wound this deep. Because it's not a wound on policy, it's a wound on the soul. You stand there, staring at an empty stall that used to house Lucky 8, and you ask yourself, not as a citizen, not as a voter, but as a human being, what kind of people do we become when we let this happen in our name? You walk out of the stable slowly, the Louisiana sun now high above, casting long shadows behind everything it touches, but none as long as the shadow this raid has left. You keep turning it over in your mind, the trucks, the screaming, the silence afterward, the chilling efficiency of it all. You weren't just a witness. You were a participant by watching, by filming, by not turning away. That matters, because ICE depends on silence just as much as it depends on warrants. It counts on your disbelief, your fatigue, your numbness. Oh, just another raid, people mutter. But this one isn't just another. This one shattered an entire network of lives stitched together by faith, sacrifice, and quiet labor. And now it's your voice that's needed in the silence. The footage of Jorge still exists. So does Mateo's recording. The names of the 63 are buried in court logs and detention dockets, but they're there. You can request them. You can write letters. You can demand oversight. You can push your local paper to cover the story ICE tried to erase. You can stand outside a courthouse and film. You can shout through a cracked megaphone if that's what it takes. Because the line between witness and accomplice isn't just thin, it's porous. You can slide across it without realizing, until one day, you're the one writing poems to ease your guilt. Start by sharing this video. Write a comment. Post your reaction. Use Jorge's name. Say it loud. And when you speak of what happened here, do not say enforcement. Say exploitation. Do not say illegal. Say invisible no more. A viral ICE-related TikTok from @JusticeTrackers asked, "How do you deport someone's dreams?" It ended with silence, a deliberate, deafening silence. Don't let that silence be the last word. Let this video be more than content. Let it be documentation. Let it be evidence. Let it be a warning. Because the raids will happen again, somewhere else, maybe near your home. Maybe to someone who once bagged your groceries, watched your kids, trimmed your hedges. And when it does, maybe you'll already be ready. The sun has dipped lower now, throwing amber light across the racetrack fences and turning the dust in the air gold. You stand still, breathing in the quiet, your ears tuning in to every distant hoofbeat that might still echo from yesterday. The stalls are empty, but they hum with memory. There's a strange peace here, a kind of sacred hush that only comes when you finally look something ugly straight in the eye and refuse to flinch. It doesn't feel good, exactly, but it feels real. And that's enough. You think of Jorge again, brushing his horse in the dark before the agents arrived. You think of the children waiting at school for parents who never showed, of Mateo's blurry video clip, and the weird photo of the ICE agent holding that cowboy hat, grinning like it's a trophy. You think of the silence in the town and the tiny protests stitched together by kindness and community. All of it fits together into something you never expected. A truth that hurts, but also heals. You're not just a viewer anymore. You're a keeper of this story now. And keepers have a duty. So tonight, when you lay your head down, do it knowing you saw something that mattered, that you heard the cries and chose not to ignore them. Let that awareness settle into your bones. Let it soften you. Let it prepare you. And tomorrow, when the world demands your attention with headlines and noise, remember this moment. Return to it. Because even in the darkest corners of our country, a little light like yours can be the beginning of change.